Hello fellow gamers and welcome to another NX Gamers video, this time coming from EGX. And unlike last year, what I'm going to do is break it down so that each video concentrates on one game that I played there and where possible some direct feed footage. And today's game is going to concentrate on that big release from EA. Yes, Need for Speed is getting another game with the last release rivals hitting the launch of both the PS4 and Xbox One. But that was a few years ago and things have moved on. Obviously the Frostbite engine was used then and it's still used now, but the engine has changed quite dramatically since that time. It's now implemented a full global illumination, volumetric lighting and obviously physically based shading, which is the de rigueur this generation and will make the single biggest difference I think on most people's views of last gen games to now gen games. The change here is they've obviously made the game far bigger as well. It is still an open world game, it allows you to travel everywhere and there's still a storyline involved in the game. It's not linked simply just to playing around and driving like a loon. Now the frame rate on the game will be 30 FPS on both the PS4 and Xbox One, and the PC version is not launching until next year. This translates into them concentrating on the console versions first and foremost, and then releasing a more polished PC release a la Rockstar's method next year, when the PC version of the original game that launched with this generation had a few issues, shall we say, with the frame rate being locked at 30, and then when you unlocked that you had some physics issues which caused the game and the world to go haywire a little bit. So they want to make sure that doesn't happen again and make sure they release a version that is supported by PC players and enjoyed by them, and that is commendable. People may complain, but obviously that's the way things are, and this game will launch on consoles this Christmas. A fun fact is obviously the engine can be tied to the frame rate or frame rate independent when physics are involved, and what happened with the game originally when they designed it was velocity was based exactly on the frame rate calculation and wasn't independent, and this ended up when you unlocked it to 60 the game actually ran at twice the speed of 30, which was basically unplayable for many and not something they want to repeat, I'm very sure. Now there is a closed beta going out sometimes this week. I don't know whether I'll get access to it, but even if I do, it is an NDA so I cannot talk about it or show any footage, but what I can do is talk about what I played and experienced and was able to film at EGX last week. You can see some footage playing before you, but essentially the game looks and feels and plays exactly as you would expect from the preview footage, including the Gamescom trailer which EA made available. The game is set between dusk and dawn. There is no daytime racing, there's no day and night cycle in this game. It's completely set at night time, and it always looks wet, or at least all the trailers I've seen and certainly the demo that I played, the game was consistently wet. Like I say, it uses the Frostbite engine, therefore it means that it's got all of the abilities and the benefits that come with that engine, but it's now capped at the 30 rate rather than 60, which means they can ramp up the visuals or at least get a consistent 30. Playing the demo, I can confirm without any frame rate analysis, this game did not suffer from any dips, but this is a 30 FPS game on the console, so there's probably a little bit of headroom left in there. Now in terms of resolution, the PS4 version was 1920 by 1080, they confirmed that. I'm not too sure whether or not the Xbox One version is going to hit that same metric, with the original Rivals at launch being one of the few games that did actually achieve that metric on the Xbox One. So this may still achieve a full 1080 on both machines, with SRAM usage being fully managed now, and I'm certainly not a problem that Frostbite or Ghost Games will have issues with, I'm sure. The biggest problem I had with the demo, and predominantly the game at this point, is the fact that the world felt very empty and very barren. In regards to the demo that I played here, there was no pedestrians and hardly any traffic on the streets. It was a 4v4 setup with the machines allied across each other, and you basically had to drag race each other around this little city street or this closed off area, with the cops racing around trying to catch you all as you did this street race. Now the beta is probably going to follow a similar structure, allowing you to play online, obviously test the servers, with Ghost having to make sure that all of this works now. With the game being completely online dependent, it needs an online connection to even play according to EA directly, and this is something that's going to cause a lot of criticism and already has, with EA saying this allows them to update the game real time as you play. Is something for debate at this point. There is this snapshot feature that allows players to vote on whether or not you're good or bad, and this is what they're hiding behind, but it does feel a little bit like an online DRM solution, so we'll wait and see what this delivers in the game. Visually, like I say, it's very impressive. The Frostbite engine is an absolute star of this generation that pretty much has every modern technique box ticked in its engine capacity, and certainly visually there's nothing to worry about on the PS4, and I'm sure PC and Xbox One releases will also achieve the levels that people expect. This obviously includes a complete particle-based lighting system in the game using voxels to calculate volumetric lighting, volumetric shadows. Briefly, voxels are volumetric pixels, which is another way to draw a scene rather than just using polygons, and they use them here within the frustum to calculate the depth they need for the volumetric light source and shadows, which is efficient use of the hardware, making sure your scene looks beautiful on camera and you're not worried about what you can't see off camera. This 3D textured solution may sound familiar, as Guerrilla Games use it in its Killzone engine. And here, just like there, impressively so. It obviously has some additional benefits from Ghost Games working on the Frostbite engine, along with others, which has now become EA's singular engine across all games and platforms, understandably. The volumetric lighting system in here looks beautiful, with the fog bouncing around the street lamps as you drive through, and obviously the distant atmospheric scattering you can see even at night time works very well, and this will improve only the amount of effects you see in this game and other games, with the lighting and shadow process being very attractive indeed. In fact, as you saw in my Battlefront preview, the shadow casting particle systems and works really well when you play that game firsthand. Again, this engine is superb, and I think it certainly will see us through this generation. I don't think anyone's going to complain about the visuals in Need for Speed at all. The only big problem, like I say, is the fact that the engine does feel a little bit underpowered here and not really being stressed to the max with the amount of density on show. Another big bullet point for the engine is its physically based rendering is exemplary in action, covering everything in the game right down to those car bodyworks and the water reflectance that runs off them, with be it carbon fibre, rubber, steel. It all looks impressively accurate, with Ghost Games bringing their own iterations to that engine, along with other teams that are working alongside DICE to make Frostbite the engine that I know will last this generation. In terms of the gameplay itself, like I say, there's no DLC, or at least paid DLC, and there's no microtransactions, which is good news, meaning you don't have to pay to win or pay to relive your dreams of being something from the Fast and the Furious. Like all games this generation, it has to be backed up by a decent post-processing effects suite, and Frostbite doesn't fail on that score. This cannot be under-egged how much it improves visual fidelity and quality, and this game runs a beautiful focal length depth of field bokeh, which looks beautiful in cutscenes and in gameplay. And obviously this contributes to the water droplets on the camera lens, which also refract light from headlights and street lights as you drive past. And in addition to that, you've got the particle sprays that bounce around as you collide with objects in the game. Being such a rain-drenched road, cube map reflections are a given to give you that neon reflected roughness on the streets, and it may also use the stochastic screen space reflections in the final game, but I did get the impression this demo was pared back slightly to keep it right for this beta, which makes sense, and it may also explain some of the small LOD issues in the game, which were much more pronounced due to the fact the roads were so barren for so long. But the stochastic screen space reflections are very good and would work well in a game so wet and shiny as this, so they may make the final release, which I'll inform you when I get my hands on for my head-to-head. But the anti-aliasing solution, as I mentioned on my Star Wars preview, has definitely improved, with it now using a temporal solution, and obviously as seen in effect in Far Cry 4 on the consoles with the Michael Drobolt HRAA solution, this will take big precedence this generation, like I say, and will always undermine the hard work any artist or programmers create a high quality image just to be undermined by frequency issues from low and high sample data. This is what you need to manage, and it's not just geometry, it has to cover everything from specular highlights, post effects and alpha textures. So this is something we're going to see a big shift this generation, and certainly Need for Speed looks like it's delivered on that score and really improved the image quality quite dramatically over the previous game. As always, I hope you guys and girls enjoyed this. If you did, then please hit the like and subscribe button. I really appreciate each and every one of you that does. Please leave your thoughts below and I'll comment as soon as possible. You guys and girls take care, and I'll see you very soon on the next one.